All right, let's dive into a massive choice that every single country has to make. It's a choice that literally impacts the price of your phone, the car you might drive, even the food you eat. Are we talking open gates or high fences? Let's get right into it.
I mean, just think about the world we're living in, right? You can grab fruit that was grown thousands of miles away, drive a car built on a different continent, and use a phone that was designed halfway across the globe. This whole global marketplace seems like a dream. Endless choices, fantastic prices. It sounds pretty perfect, doesn't it? So what's the big idea making it all happen?
Well, that big idea is called free trade. And at its heart, it's super simple. It's about letting goods and services flow between countries without governments getting in the way. It means every country can just focus on what they're awesome at, whether that's building cars, growing coffee, or designing software, and then trade their best stuff with everyone else. And the payoffs for playing to your strengths? They're huge. When countries trade freely, you get this intense global competition. And for you and me, the consumers, that almost always means we get lower prices and better quality products. And for companies, well, it opens up markets with billions of new customers. On paper, the whole system just gets more efficient and everybody wins.
Okay, so if it's all about lower prices and making things better for everyone, that leads to a really big question. Why do we always hear about trade wars and economic battles? If opening the gates is so great, why on earth are so many countries tempted to build fences?
The answer is a really powerful counter-idea: protectionism. It's pretty much the exact opposite of free trade. This is when governments jump in on purpose to slow down or control trade. They're not doing it for global efficiency. They're doing it to shield their own homegrown industries from the, fierce winds of foreign competition.
But how do you actually build one of these economic walls? It's not with bricks and mortar. Let's open up what we could call the protectionist playbook and look at the actual tools governments use to take control.
The most famous tool, the one you've probably heard of, is the tariff. Just think of it like an entry tax for anything coming from another country. So the government slaps a tax on an imported car, and bam, it's suddenly more expensive. All of a sudden, that car made right here at home looks a lot better on the price tag. The goal is simple: get you to buy local.
Then you've got something called quotas. Now, this isn't about the price, it's all about the numbers. A government can just say, okay, this year we're only letting 1 million foreign-made smartphones into the country. That's it, full stop. By capping the supply, they make sure their own local producers have a guaranteed piece of the pie.
And a third big tool is the subsidy. This is when a government just gives money or financial help directly to its own companies. This helps lower their costs so they can sell their stuff cheaper and compete with foreign goods. It's kind of like giving your home team a head start in the race.
So, there are the tools, but using them creates this massive trade-off. It's a debate that's always raging, with really strong arguments on both sides. So let's break down the pros and the cons of building these economic walls. All right, so the people who support protectionism say it's all about survival. First, it's about protecting local jobs from going to countries where labor is cheaper. Second, it's about helping out new, so-called infant industries, giving them a safe space to grow up before they have to fight against the global giants. And this one's crucial. It can be about national security, making sure your country can make essential things like steel or medicine, especially during a crisis.
But, and it's a big but, those walls have a pretty steep price tag. When there's less competition, local companies don't have as much reason to innovate or keep their prices down. For us, that usually means fewer choices and paying more. But the biggest risk of all? Retaliation. When one country puts up a wall, others tend to put up their own, and that can spark these really damaging trade wars that end up hurting everybody.
So what we have here are two totally different ways of looking at the world. Free trade is all about the consumer, about global efficiency. It believes that competition makes everyone stronger in the long run. Protectionism, on the other hand, is all about the local producer and national stability. It believes that sometimes you need that shield to survive. They're just fundamentally different goals coming from two different philosophies.
Okay, so let's boil it all down. Who really wins and who loses? With free trade, consumers, that's us, we usually win with lower prices and more options. Under protectionism, we often lose out. But for local industries, it's the complete opposite. Free trade means they face brutal competition, while protectionism gives them a much-needed shield. This really shows that no policy is just good or bad. The real question is always, who are you trying to help?
And that brings us right to the heart of the whole issue. You see, it's almost never about a country choosing one extreme and completely ditching the other. Instead, it's this constant, really difficult search for the right balance.
When you get right down to it, this whole thing is like a high-stakes tightrope walk. Every single nation is trying to balance the awesome benefits of being open to the world with the absolute need to have some control over its own destiny. And that balancing act? It's one of the biggest challenges in our modern connected economy.
So, for anyone studying this, remember this. The goal isn't to pick a side and say, free trade is good or protectionism is good. Real understanding comes from being able to explain both sides of the coin clearly, to analyze all the pros and cons, and to think critically about when one approach might make more sense than the other.
Which leaves us with one final thing to think about. Is there some perfect formula out there? A magic sweet spot between open gates and high fences? Or is the global economy just locked in a never-ending battle between these two powerful competing ideas?